All right, great. Thank you so much, Ariana. We'll get started here. Everybody see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining me tonight. As I mentioned before, I'm not a birder, but I do enjoy all things nature and all things Mount Diablo. So we tried to do this last year, but COVID got in the way. So it's been a year in the making. But tonight I'm going to talk about a little bit about the wildflowers of Mount Diablo and really wildflowers of the East Bay. And tonight, I'll talk about a little bit about the flower lore, some of the stories behind our flowers, how we got some of the common names, how we got some of the Latin names. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Our first one here is kind of the granddaddy of them all. You all recognize this one, of course, the California poppy, or Schultzia californica. It is, of course, the California state flower and was so named in 1903. And it's ubiquitous throughout California, the United States, much of Europe. It's heavily planted in garden beds. And if you have poppies in your yard, you'll know that it is an escape artist. It will not stay where you put it, and it will thrive in certain conditions and once take over your yard. So it's such a lovely flower. When I was growing up, I was always told, oh, it's illegal to pick a poppy. So even though they grow in the middle of my walkway, I'm always reluctant to move them out of my way. So they are named for an Estonian by a German who was sailing on a Russian ship. This man, Otto von Kotzebue, he was a Russian explorer who commanded a 180-ton ship called the Rurik. And they set sail with 27 men in 1815 to find passage across the Arctic. 1 year later, they arrived here in the San Francisco Bay. Stepping off was this man, a German botanist and poet named Adalbert von Chamisso. And he had a buddy with him, this gentleman, by the name, he was an Estonian physician, naturalist, and entomologist by the name of Johann Friedrich von Eschholz. And you'll recognize that last name, Eschholz. As they stepped off the ship, they saw the lovely hills of San Francisco. Of course, back then they weren't dotted with homes and such, but instead dotted with golden poppies. And so it was von Chamisso who decided to name the flower after his buddy, Schultzia. The spelling got a little weird, but it is named after him. Of course, they collected specimens to take back to Mother Russia. And it's so technically the California poppy, of which all California poppies are scientifically compared to, resides in Russia. So it's a very worldly flower. They also saw hillsides of this particular flower. That is the lupin or lupinus. And it comes in many different varieties. We have a lot of them on Mount Diablo. One of my favorites is this one, the arroyo lupin, the chick lupin. We have this one, the miniature dove lupin, or just dove lupin. And then this one, which is the big shrubby bushy one that you see scattered along the hillsides and roadsides, and that's the silver bush lupin. But there's also summer lupin and wood lupin. Lupinus comes from wolf, and it was once thought of as kind of a nasty plant, and it was thought that nothing could grow near this plant. And it was thought of as stealing minerals from the surrounding vegetation, like a wolf steals livestock. But in fact, it was just misunderstood, perhaps as the wolf is, in that it's a pioneer plant and it grows where others just can't. It also happens to be a nitrogen fixer. It was the runner-up as state flower of California. And you'll notice this logo here of our cow bears, and it got its coloration, the blue and gold, from the hillsides of the blue lupin and the golden poppies. These are the seed pods of the lupin after the flowers have gone away. And it might be the origination for the term going loopy. Back in Old England, it was said it was kind of a pejorative term to be called a lupin eater. People would eat these seeds. This is what the seed looks like in those pods. But the seeds are rife with alkaloids. And if you consume too many alkaloids, it gets into your brain tissue and kind of makes you a little scatterbrained. And so perhaps this is where we got the term going loopy. It is, in fact, quite common in cuisine throughout the world, including South American cuisine. And if it's treated properly, if it's leached of those alkaloids, if it's canned or pickled properly, it is said to be one of the next superfoods. This flower, which is not a lupin, it's the town of Larkspur, which is over on the other side on the peninsula there, is dedicated to the lupin. Charles Wright was a man who wanted to form a new town, and so he set about so in 1887. And his wife, Georgiana, thought it would be nice if she could name the town. She was somewhat of an amateur botanist. And so she really admired the hillsides of the beautiful blue lupin. But she wasn't the greatest of amateur botanists. And so she mistakenly called the lupin the larkspur. And so the town still has the name of Larkspur. I'd like to talk briefly about the doctrine of signatures. It has a lot to do with how some of our flowers are used or named. And it's basically, it is a ancient philosophy which refers to herbs which mirror different body parts to help with their healing. We all know from growing up that you are supposed to eat carrots for eye health, and you'll see that the resemblance of the innards of a carrot looks much like an eye. And perhaps the most recognizable one is that of the walnut. We know that the walnuts are good for the brain, and in fact looks like a little brain inside the shell. So this is an important concept. It's believed that God or a higher power, Mother Nature, crafted plants in a way that made them look like the organ that they were designed to help heal, thus giving them a unique signature. And if you break down that word signature, you'll see that it's a sign from nature. It's an important aspect of folk medicine from the early Middle Ages until the modern period. And one of the plants that you can see the doctrine of signature is this one. This is the Pacific hound's tongue, or Adellinia grande. And you'll notice the leaves of the hound's tongue resemble that of a dog's tongue. And it was said that you should tie the leaf to the sole of your foot to keep wild dogs away from you. Not sure how well that worked, because the plant was also used as a poultice to treat dog bites. It's a really lovely flower. It's blooming now. It's an early bloomer, and you can see it on Mount Diablo and all around the Bay Area. This one kind of is what spurred my interest in why things are named the way they are. Milkmaids, I wondered where that came from. Milkmaids are Cardamine californica, and they in fact are named because of this hat that a milkmaid traditionally wore in Scandinavian countries, and that's how it got its name of the milkmaid. This one you'll see all along the trail side right now and throughout most of spring. And this is, this is the miner's lettuce, or Claytonia porfoliata. And it is green gold. During the gold rush in the 1840s, fresh fruit and vegetables were scarce. And so the miners were contracting scurvy from that vitamin deficiency. And it was either learning about it from the Spanish or the Native Americans that this was a great little plant that was nutritious and tasty and could provide some of those vitamins they so needed. My colleague and mentor on flower lore, Ken Lavin, has a nice story about dressing up your miner's lettuce. It's said that if you went and stirred up a red anthill, they will come out fighting mad, and their defense mechanism is to shoot formic acid all over you. And so if you collected that formic acid, of course, it's vinegar, and you could make a nice little vinaigrette for your miner's lettuce. I always encourage people that if they're going to try a little bit of miner's lettuce, not to take it from directly beside the trail, because we know that dogs like to hike their legs as they walk along. So you don't want that miner's lettuce. It has a very tiny little delicate white flower you see there in the close-up. This we all recognize as mistletoe or Viscum album. And Viscum means sticky, album means white. And there's a close-up of the leaf structure. It also has little white berries. It is a hemiparasite. It doesn't completely rob the tree of its vitamins or nutrients. So the Druids worshipped it. We all know the Christians kissed under it during the holidays. And in fact, Oklahomans made it their state flower. In a particularly nasty winter in the 1800s, as the Oklahoma land rush was on, many people were dying from the elements. And of course, we all know we like to adorn the graves of our loved ones with color, something floral. Well, the only thing that they could find was the mistletoe, and so it became the state flower. This is the scarlet pimpernel. You'll see it all over the trail sides. It is Lysimachia arvensis, and it's known as the poor man's weatherglass. How does a flower predict precipitation? It closes up before the rains come, and it's able to sense when there's about 70% humidity and will close up. And it does that because it needs to protect the very delicate pollen that's easily washed away by water. And you'll see that bright yellow pollen there. The Scarlet Pimpernel was, of course, a long-running play and novel from the early 1900s. And it told the story of Sir Percy Blakeney as a wealthy English baronet who rescued individuals sent to the guillotine. There's an actor who portrayed that. And he taunts his enemies by leaving a single Scarlet Pimpernel behind. And so the poem goes, we seek him here, we seek him there. Those Frenchies seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven? Is he in hell? That damned elusive Pimpernel. I'll say this a lot. This is one of my favorites, but it's really a spectacular little flower and has so much in its name. This is the woodland columbine, Aquilegia formosa. And there's a nice close-up. Columba comes from the Latin for dove. Aquilegia is from Aquila, meaning eagle. Of course, you probably all know that, being from the Audubon. The flower spurs are said to resemble that of an eagle's talons. And could it have been a national flower? It has varieties of red, white, and blue. It references the national bird right in its Latin name. It references the dove in its common name, a symbol of peace and something us Americans treasure. The spurs can resemble the crown on the Statue of Liberty. And so it seems like it would have been a good candidate for the national flower, except that at that time, it was common to give a woman a bouquet of columbine as a sign that her husband was being unfaithful to her. And so the columbine as the national flower never happened. And instead, we have, of course, the rose. This one is a lovely little flower, the Johnny Jump Up, or Viola pedunculata. And quite simply, these flowers spring up almost anywhere, and hence their name, they jump up. I was just out hiking this past weekend in Mount Diablo, and they are all over the place. You'll often find them in fields and grasslands. It's said that if you peel off the largest of the 5 petals, you'll see Johnny soaking his 2 feet in a tub, and the feet are 2 of the 5 stamens. Of course, you may remember, and if you Google Johnny Jump Up, you'll get this little contraption used to hang in a doorway and let Johnny bounce all over the place. But it has another link, the viola or violet was linked to this man, Napoleon Bonaparte. It was his favorite flower. His wife Josephine wore them on her wedding day, and he gave her a bouquet of them every anniversary, even after they were divorced. After he was banished to the Elba, he declared, "I shall return with the violets in spring." And so his followers attributed the violet as his symbol, and he became known as Corporal Violet. You'll see this one out there. This is the lovely English plantain, or Plantago lanceolata, and it is not a native here. And in fact, it immigrated here with early settlers. It often stuck to the feet of the imported livestock. And so when it's wet, the seeds become very sticky and they can cling to the feet of cattle and humans. And in fact, the scientific name Plantago, of course, means sole of the foot. And so the Native Americans knew this, and if they saw it, they knew that the white man was probably in the area. And in fact, Longfellow, in his Songs of Hiawatha, told about it in "Wheresoever they tread beneath them, springs a flower unknown among us, springs the white man's foot in blossom." This, you'll see the 3 leaves there, which is the giveaway. This is the giant trillium or Trillium chloropedalum. And Linnaeus, who originated the taxonomic system, created the name trillium to describe its 3-ness. It has 3 leaves, a 3-petaled flower, 3 sepals, 3-celled ovaries, and 3-ribbed berries. It's also known as the wake robin because they bloom about the same time as the arriving migrating robins in spring. And it follows also the doctrine of signatures we spoke about. This smells putrid, and so it was used to treat gangrene, also a putrid thing. It attracts common flesh flies, these little buggers you know too well, that frequent garbage and dead animals. And in fact, while it's not a pollinator, it does provide a way for the plant to reproduce. These are so lovely and so abundant right now and continuing all through spring. This is the buttercup. We have both the California buttercup, Ranunculus californicus, as well as the Sacramento Valley buttercup. They basically vary by the number of petals. Ranunculus is Latin for little frog, stemming from the fact that, like frogs, buttercups favor moist places. The buttercup is also known as the blister plant and has been for centuries. In fact, European beggars would rub the buttercup juice all over their skin to grow these nasty looking sores so that passersby would take greater pity on them and perhaps contribute a little more. Cattle avoid it, although if they're hungry enough, they will eat it, although their mouths will be quite blistered. Unscrupulous farmers would feed buttercups to cows so that it would add a golden tint to the cream and the butter that it produced. This is much the same way as farmers would feed marigolds to chickens to give it to give the uncooked meat that orangish hue. In the Middle Ages, it was used as a wedding flower. And in fact, children would hold the flower to a playmate's chin. And if they saw the reflection of yellow, they knew that that person liked butter. It could also mean that that person was or would become quite wealthy, for butter at one time was quite the luxury item. This flower you'll see a little later in the season, but in abundance. You'll see how many little buds there on each stalk. This is the ethereal spear, or Tritolea laxa. In Milton's biblical epic Paradise Lost, the angels Ithuriel and Zephon were charged by Gabriel to watch over Adam and Eve as they slumbered in paradise. It's said Satan was prowling around in the form of a toad, and when the two angels came to sleeping Eve, they found Satan whispering in her ear. Him there they found, squat like a toad, close at the ear of Eve, assailing by his devilish art to reach the organs of her fancy, and with them to forge illusions as he list phantasms and dreams. Him thus intent, ethereal with his spear, touched lightly, for no falsehood can endure touch of celestial temper, but returns of force to its own likeness. Up he starts, discovered and surprised. And so the spear of ethereal thwarted any attempt by the devil by turning it back into his own visage and thereby saving Eve. This one is goosegrass bedstraw. It's a fun one to say, Gallium aparine, the close-up here of the little leaves, and a very delicate little white flower. It was once used to stuff mattresses, as the name would indicate, and it's said that yellow bedstraw was in the manger at Jesus's birth. It's commonly called cleavers for its ability to grab hold of just about anything walking by it. It has little hook-haired stems that are much like Velcro. And in fact, aparine in Greek means to seize. It's known by grip grass, scratch grass, stick-a-back, pigtail, sticky willy. So you get the idea that the stuff is sticky. And the English, of course, believed if you threw it at a maiden's back and it stuck, she had a sweetheart. If it fell off or she pulled it off, the bent sprig would form the initial of her future sweetheart. Another delicate little white flower is the chickweed, or Stellaria media. And it may be the most common flowering weed on earth. And it is a scourge to gardeners, but beloved by birds, hence the name. Birds eat both the seeds and the young tops and leaves, and there are over 30 American bird species that feed on chickweed, so it is an important sustenance. It's also known by birdweed, chickenweed, chickwiddles, cluckweed, so you get the idea that birds like it. This one you might recognize from your garden, although this one is a different form, a little larger. It's the bindweed, or Convolvulus arvensis, also known as wild morning glory. The blossoms close at sunset unless the moon is full and bright. And the vines can grow about 10 or more feet and climb over, around, and bind any plant that they encounter. And it's said to grow so fast you can almost see them grow. It can actually make a complete circle around an object in 2 hours. This is a very important plant, especially if you're a butterflyer. This is the California milkweed, or Asclepias californica. You'll often see it in this form where it kind of looks like cobwebs formed around it. And there you see it in bloom. It's a protector of butterflies and an entertainer of children. Dating from the earliest days of America, the poor would collect the fluff and use it to stuff mattresses. It was also known as wild cotton. Before the seed pod split, the pappus was collected and mixed with wool, which would create a softer thread than just the wool itself. But you had to collect a whole lot of it. In the 1800s, it was used for beds and cloth, hats, and paper. But as I said, it became obsolete because it was just too laborious. However, when World War II came around, we could no longer import Asian fibers, of course. And so we turned back to the milkweed for life preservers and the linings for airmen's jackets and outfits. It was once used extensively to treat ailments like asthma and other inflammatories. And in fact, the Latin Asclepias comes from the Greek hero of the medical arts, Asclepius. As the name indicates, of course, the stems are filled with a sticky, milky white fluid. It's very reliant on flying insects for pollination, as many flowers are, and it doesn't want the crawling insects, such as ants, to disturb that. And so the tiny spikes in insects' feet that allows them to climb vertical surfaces will in fact pierce the tender flesh, release the milk, and trap the ant or insect. The plant is very acrid. But the caterpillar of the monarch butterfly feeds on the leaves and makes the caterpillar and the subsequent butterfly quite distasteful. And since we're all here with the Audubon Society, we know that it's distasteful to birds. In fact, other butterflies like the viceroy simply mimic that of the monarch's coloring and design and take advantage of that characteristic of being left alone by birds. It also has some cardiac glycosides that may induce a heart attack in grazing animals. It's said that if a bird does eat a monarch, perhaps for the first time in its life, it will become quite nauseous and can vomit for up to 30 minutes after eating one. And so they do learn rather quickly. Some birds will in fact catch a butterfly, sample some of its wing tissue to see if it's bitter, a testing of the waters so they don't make the same mistake. Where monarchs overwinter, birds like the grosbeaks and the orioles have learned which parts of the monarch are the least poisonous. So I don't know which parts those are. I always imagine that they just kind of pick and choose some of those little decorative panes in their wings. This is quite common everywhere. This is the clover or trifolium, and there's a ton of different varieties and species. We have the cowbag clover, this one, crimson clover, rose clover, tomcat clover. And the clover comes from the word clava, which was the three-pronged club used by Hercules. And we're all familiar with its foliage, the tri-leaved clover. It's imported here from Europe, and it was valued for its use as livestock feed and as a nitrogen fixer in fields. It's said to have more nutrition per pound than the wheat or grasses that the livestock are eating. Leaves of many species close up at night, which is a rare habit. And because competition for pollinators is tough out there, some species of clovers are exceptionally sweet, and you might suck on some for a sweet treat. Excuse me. And here we see the elusive four-leaf clover. The four-leaf clover most commonly occurs in Trifolium repens. Some species have the tendency to produce four-leaf clovers. It's about 1 in 10,000. There's, of course, a fascination with four-leaf clovers that harkens back to a time when anything resembling the shape of Christ's cross was considered sacred. Although we know that the three-leaf clover also had religious significance as being used by St. Patrick as the symbol of the Holy Trinity. Witches were supposed to shun clover leaves, and all sorts of good luck was said to befall those who found four-leaf clovers or more. There can be more than four-leaf clovers. And dreaming of clover is supposed to bring you good fortune. And many people like to adorn themselves with jewelry made of four-leaf clovers. There's a clover specialty company in America that produces little tchotchkes to have that good luck with you at all times. This one, also one of my favorites, the owl's clover, or Castanea excerta. You'll notice Castanea is not the same as Trifolium that we saw in the other clover. And in fact, it is not a true clover. Here's a nice close-up. It is instead related to the paintbrush family, the Indian paintbrush. There's some paintbrush there. And why owl's clover, you might ask? Well, look at the very center of the photo on the left, and you'll see what appears to be maybe a little owl sitting there. And finally, this flower is perhaps the most well-used and recognized as different medical uses. This is yarrow, or Achillea millefolium. And we can break down that Latin name. Millefolium means 1,000 leaves. And you'll see this very fine fern-like leaf structure. The yarrow isn't blooming yet, but you see the leaves are out in abundance right now, so you know they're coming. Achillea refers to the Greek mythical hero Achilles in the Trojan War, and the central character of Homer's The Iliad. And there he's immortalized on an ancient piece of pottery. Achilles was said to have used a poultice of yarrow to treat the wounds of his soldiers. It would stop the flow of blood and allow him to return those soldiers to battle more quickly. And in fact, it's been used all the way up through the Civil War for just that. Doctors on the battlefield would carry it in their medicine bag to stop blood. It's been used for so many medicinal uses: hypochondria, cramps, dysentery, hemorrhoids, diabetes, lungs, kidney, liver, toothaches, balding, contraception, cold medicine, etc., etc. It's a true panacea of uses, although it was removed from the US pharmacopoeia in 1882 as a Western medicine. Its pungent leaves are used as a spice and is also called old man's pepper. And the extract is in fact used to flavor European soft drinks and liqueurs. And it was once used to make beer in place of the hops. And in fact, Dr. Linnaeus preferred his beer made with yarrow. Of course, it has all kinds of other forces of good and evil. Witches employed it for spells, which gave it names like Devil's Nettle and Bad Man's Plaything. It was woven into garlands to ward off evil spirits. And it hung in cribs to ward off those nasty baby-stealing witches. Love was also connected with yarrow. English country maids who wanted to know their future husband would place an ounce of the dried yarrow in a bundle of flannel, tuck it under their pillow, and chant, "Thou pretty herb of Venus's tree, thy true name is yarrow. Now who my bosom friend must be, pray tell thou me tomorrow." With that, I'll conclude this talk. I do want to mention, of course, as Ariana mentioned, I am with Mount Diablo Interpretive Association, and we have an excellent website, mdia.org. It's your place to find out all kinds of things about the mountain, from the things of how to get there, whether we're open or closed, camping info, but also has a lot of great information on the cultural and natural resources of the mountain, including wildflowers and birds and mammals, and a variety of other things. So check it out. This is our homepage that you'll find when you click on, and you'll notice featured there is our Mount Diablo Wildflower Guide. This is a comprehensive listing of our local flowers, and it's organized, as you'll see at the bottom there, by a color category. So you can choose one of the colors, such as white, scroll through and either look for the name, the common name, or look for the picture that resembles the flower you're trying to identify. Clicking on it will bring up a larger image of that flower and give you some information like bloom time and its family and Latin names. It's a great resource. Another resource that we work hard on, especially this time of year, is the Bloom Report. Each week now during peak wildflower season, an army of flower seekers goes out and lists what we have blooming on the mountain. We're adding 25 just this week. We're up to 80 plus that, so we'll be up to over 100 here pretty soon. And by the end of the peak season, we'll have added almost 300 different blooms that you'll find on Mount Diablo. It lists them now also with the Latin name, and it lists the date in which we first discovered it on the mountain. Steve Beatty, one of our volunteers, is the guru and does this list, and you'll often see him out there, as a couple of our members here tonight did today in Mitchell Canyon. It's a great resource if you're a wildflower enthusiast. And then I'll just wrap it up with some lovely little photos there. You see that characteristic blue and orange. Such lovely colors together. This you'll be familiar with, the sticky monkey flower. These are one of my favorites too, such a chartreuse color of the red maids. This is the fiddle neck popping up right now as well, and so named, of course, because of that shape of a violin's neck, the fiddle neck. Here's the larkspur we talked about earlier. This is blue witch nightshade. This is one of the longest blooming flowers. And here's some more Indian paintbrush. Every time I see Indian paintbrush, I have to take a picture. I probably have 1,000 of them, but the hues vary from the light pink, peach, red, deep red, a coral. We even have a rare yellow form on Mount Diablo. This is blue-eyed grass, such a lovely little flower. It's a later bloomer. Here's more of the owl's clover, much like the paintbrush. I probably have 1,000 of these. And the Mariposa lily. This is when you look at the intricacy of the decoration on the inside, you just wonder how nature paints so beautifully. Our iconic poppies overlooking the valley. These are the Chinese houses. You'll see these in Mitchell Canyon in the next maybe a month or so. And they're named because they look like little pagodas. especially in the stacked tiers. These are the wind poppies, similar to the California poppy. Lovely flower. And this is our icon on Mount Diablo. This is one of our natives and one of our endemics. It is only seen and grows on Mount Diablo, and it is the Mount Diablo globe lily, also known as the fairy lantern. And the juxtaposition of colors is just one of my favorites. You see the paintbrush and the globe lilies, the Chinese houses, the monkey flower all together. So striking. And with that, I'll say thank you. I want to thank my mentor, Ken Lavin, who inspired me to put on this presentation. And he provides many of the wonderful anecdotes. And I've just recently gotten some more research materials so I can start adding to this and changing some of my info. So I know a couple of you have seen this presentation already, so there'll be more to come in the future. So I thank you for listening to me talk at you, and I welcome any questions you have.
Thank you so much. That was makes me excited to go out to Mount Diablo and try to find those flowers. The pictures are beautiful, and it's good to know the history of all of them. We do have some questions in the chat. Somebody wants to know if your PowerPoint is going to be shared. Maybe it's on the MDIA website.
No, I don't have it in shareable format as yet, but the recording is here. We also have a recording of this on our MDIA website under the events page. So you can always take a look at that.
Great. And then another one, where would be an easy place to get to if you want to find hound's tongue?
Hound's tongue kind of grows in the more remote places, to be honest. You see it a lot by the Falls Trail and kind of those deep, dark, moist areas. So, you know, I don't often see it like in Mitchell Canyon, just off the trail. So this one you have to work a little harder to find.
Great. Which wildflowers have already bloomed and we might not be able to find till next year?
You know, we're still very early in the season. Our first to come out are the manzanitas, which are typically mid to late winter. So most of those have already bloomed. They have those little white urn-shaped flowers before they start putting out fruit. So those are gone for the season, but we're just starting, and we'll be going strong and steady all the way through May and early June. So there's so much to look forward to.
Well, that's great timing then that we rescheduled. Maybe we had this in mind when we picked this date. So this is
Absolutely.
a perfect preview. What trails would you recommend that would not involve too much climbing to see a diversity of wildflowers besides the trail at the summit?
Yeah, Mitchell Canyon is probably your best bang for the buck. It's an easy, flat walk. You can go as far as you want and turn around and come back. There's only a couple of small hills, and there's so much to see. You can go back every 2 weeks and see new flowers blooming and in abundance. You know, this year is difficult with the rain situation and whatnot, and so we are a little bit delayed, in fact, but it's the best place for the most bang for your buck, in an easy place.
The cat decided to make an appearance. My
Yes.
Cat's just snoozing on the bed. You know, for Mitchell Canyon, just another reminder to people is like, you have to have a pen in the car because you got to fill out the parking pass. And last time we went, I didn't have a pen, and some woman took pity on me in another car and gave me a pen. And you have to have the right amount. Is it $6?
Unless you're a senior, then it's $5.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you have cash with you. And there's the interpretive. I mean, I know it's probably closed the visitor center, but you guys might have materials on the outside for people visiting Mitchell Canyon.
Yeah, of course, COVID has been difficult. And so we do have a visitor center there. It's staffed on the weekends only. But we're trying to provide more materials on the exterior. There's posters and stuff to look at. And then we have some hike descriptions and stuff out by the trail map. So you can still find out stuff that way. Of course, you can go to our website before you head out and get all kinds of great information there as well.
That's a great resource. Are there wild sweet peas in Mount Diablo like I've seen in the Sierras?
Yeah, we do have the hillside pea and the chaparral pea. So yeah, we have a couple different pea. I've seen a lot of the leaves coming out now, so it won't be long. But yeah.
Another question here, can the wild pigs damage the flowers?
Yeah, so wild pigs are a huge problem. They're not native to California and especially to the Bay Area. They were imported here by Fish and Game 100 years ago as something to hunt. And so they have no predators. So they really run rampant, and they're like little rototillers. They dig up and eat flower pods and seeds. And so when you're walking along the trail, you'll see what looks like a rototiller has been through. And so they can. Lots of flowers grow by the trail side because they grow well in disturbed soils. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Another question about native versus invasive. Is milk vetch a native flower?
So I think you're talking about, we have spring vetch and a winter vetch on the mountain, and they are non-native, invasive, yes.
And where would one find a hop tree on Mount Diablo?
I most see them again up by the Falls Trail, and then on the backside we have a lot of them on Olympia Trail. Also more difficult places to find them, but I think they're a cool tree. A lot of people mistake them for poison oak. They have leaves of 3, but they also have a lovely scent. And if you're daring and want to show off to your friends, you can rub a little bit of it on you and say, I know that this is not poison oak.
Well, thank you. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Does anybody else have a question? And they can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Steve. Well,
right.
Oh, go ahead. Jess, go ahead.
Yes, if one finds a flower and you're not sure what it is, what would be the best way to contact Steve or someone?
Well, first of all, take photos. We all carry our phones around, and so take photos of the foliage too, and the plant, the flower part of it, and then note where you found it. And then you can start at mdia.org and use the online wildflower guide to try to find it. And if you can't, then you can always contact me. I'm at president@mdia.org, and I'll try to solve your problem for you.
Thank you.
And Steve, what do you think of the Seek app to try to do the ID while you're in?
It's pretty good. I used it a couple times this weekend to see how it would handle different things, and a lot of the time it just gives up. iNaturalist, which is part of, Seek is part of iNaturalist. You can go to iNaturalist and it has a more robust identification feature, and then humans actually get involved and help you identify things that way. So we use iNaturalist quite a bit and keep track of what we're seeing out there. So
great. All right.
One more question.
Sure.
With the lack of rain, You said that some of the things are maybe starting later. Are we banking that we're going to get a little more rain and that's going to cause them to bloom? What happens if we don't? Do we just get a lackluster season, or?
Yeah, usually during let's see, 2019, I believe, was the year we had lots of rain, and we were in kind of 5 years prior to that drought, and so you get this robust showing because all of that energy has been stored up in those seeds that didn't bloom, and so you get these super blooms that happen in the desert and to some degree on Mount Diablo. So all is not lost, but yes, it started a little late this season, but there's still plenty out there. And if we get little tricklings of rain over the next 2 months or so, we should still be set up for some good displays.
Good. I noticed just with the mustard, which I know is non-native and in bloom right now, it was coming up and just growing like a weed for a better. And then today I walked by and I noticed that it looked, at first I thought something smashed it down, but it wasn't. It's actually wilting and dying. And I'm thinking, gosh, if we don't get a little rain to perk it up, all those plants that are about, I don't know, 12 inches now are just like, blah. So
yeah. And hopefully, the mountains were brown for so much longer this year, and Mount Diablo, there's still parts of Mount Diablo that are still just now turning green, and so hopefully what little rain we get tomorrow night will hopefully be enough to perk things up again.
Well, thanks, Steve. And it's nice seeing everybody's face. So thanks for making this format happen. It's lovely. Hi, Donna.
So Rosita wants to know about one called Orobankia or broom rape. Is there, I know that we sometimes see it when we go at Mitchell Canyon and turn up to go toward White Canyon.
Yes.
Is that the best place? And are there other places where it can be found?
Yeah, that's a good Twin Peaks and Mitchell Rock area are good for the broom rapes, and as well up sometimes on Mary Bowerman up towards the summit, which is also, I should mention, Mary Bowerman, if you can make the drive up to the summit, which is the hard part. The Mary Bowerman Trail is 0.7 miles of flat, and you'll see a varied display up there. And usually later, as you're not seeing things bloom down lower, they're still blooming up high. But those are the best places for the broom rapes.
Important question. Are there any bathrooms open at Mount Diablo, since I see the visitor centers are closed?
Yes, so the bathrooms a lot of them are closed unrelated to COVID. We've had a great water shortage on the mountain. All of our potable water comes from the springs on the mountain. So the difficulties with rains of late, coupled with a very old water system and ongoing repairs, mean that a lot of the restrooms are closed. If they are closed, we have porta potties in place of them. Lower Summit parking lot and Mitchell Canyon, as well as Macedo Ranch, will always have plumbing. So those are the places that you can get water and use actual facilities.
Even now during COVID?
Yes, like I said, yes.
Thank you.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That was fantastic. So we will be, virtual again next month for our April membership meeting. And the birding info is going to be Joanna Wu from the National Audubon Society talking about a new initiative to give more attention to female birds. Female Bird Day is coming up. A lot of times the attention is paid to the male birds. They're more colorful, they're easier to spot, but that does lead to some problems like the conservation focusing on the male birds when the females and the males might not be in the same area. And then for the main program, I'm hoping we have Annie Schmidt from Point Blue Conservation Science talking to us about her research in Antarctica for Adelaide penguins, but I haven't heard from her. I got an out of office that she's in Antarctica. So if she's not available, we will do nest boxes, but I'll let you know when I get that confirmed. But other than that, thank you all for joining us. My cat showed up to say hello.
Yeah.
Preston. She loves wildflowers. No, not really. Anyway, okay, it was great seeing you all, and we'll see you next month. Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
great month,
All right,
everyone.
everybody.